He's my son. I am his biological father. Not you, Mr. Sparks, he said in a cold voice, as if just stating the fact would change the entire truth. Like hell he is, I shouted, convincing myself rather than telling him. I don't even remember the events that led me here, or how I came to find myself sitting on the floor, staring at the handsome face of the youngest millionaire in the state. It all feels nothing short of a dream. A nightmare maybe. Here I was, finally going to the audition I had begged my agent infinite times to get me. But no. Life had bizarre plans for me. Like always. Worst of all, I had Leo with me. And how cruel are these people that they sort of kidnapped me. Even though I have a child with me. Honestly, they didn't look evil. Their expensive suits, sophisticated way of conversing, and elite demeanor made me feel like a low-grade illiterate in front of them. They had an air of authority that made me instinctively pull Leo closer. Noah Sparks? One of them asked, his tone making it clear it wasn't really a question. Yes, I replied, wary. You need to come with us, he said, and before I could protest, they were gently but firmly guiding us toward a sleek black car parked by the curb. Hey, what's going on? I demanded, panic rising in my chest. I have an audition. I can't just. It's a matter of urgency. Mr. Sparks, the other man interrupted. Please get in the car. I hesitated, glancing down at Leo, who looked up at me with wide, curious eyes. The men didn't seem threatening, but their insistence and the underlying edge in their voices left me no choice. I picked up Leo, holding him close as we got into the car. The door shut with a quiet click, sealing us inside. The drive was silent, the atmosphere tense. My mind raced with questions, none of which I voiced. Who were these men? What did they want? And why were they taking us to wherever it was they were taking us? We pulled up to an imposing gate that swung open smoothly, revealing manicured lawns and a grand, stately home. My anxiety spiked as the car came to a stop in front of the entrance. The door opened, and one of the men gestured for us to step out. Inside, the mansion was even more luxurious than I had imagined. Gleaming floors, high ceilings, and every corner exuded a sense of luxury and elegance. They led us down a corridor into a spacious room where a man stood by the window, his back to us. Mr. Sterling, we've brought him, one of the bodyguards announced. The man turned, and my breath caught in my throat. Owen Sterling, the youngest millionaire in the state, stood before me. His presence was commanding, his expression unreadable. I had seen his face in magazines and on TV, but in person, he was even more striking. But this was not the time to fantasize about his face, or his muscular body beneath that light linen. This man thinks he has some sort of claim over my son. Over my dead body will he get to take my son? Are you listening to me? His cold yet calm voice snapped me back to the present. He can't be. I've been with him since the day he was born. He is my son, I replied and pulled Leo closer, who was already looking at me with huge blue eyes full of concern for me. You do see the resemblance, don't you? He said, smiling as he looked at Leo, who waved at him with his toothy smile. As much as I didn't want to accept it, I couldn't deny it. The resemblance between them was uncanny. Same lustrous blonde hair, striking pair of beautiful blue eyes, the same smirk, sharp features. But how could it be? I always presumed Leo must have received his features from his gestational surrogate. That's how I got Leo from an overseas fertility clinic where they just asked me for my sample and a huge amount of money. Almost all of my lifetime savings. But the day I saw Leo, his tiny hands held my finger. I knew it was all worth it. I knew I'd love him more than anything else in the entire world. That he'd be my world. I picked Leo up in my lap as I tried to come up with a retort to Owen's claim. But before that, he was sitting in front of me on his knees, only inches away from me. I could smell him. He even smelled expensive, a mix of citrus, thyme, and juniper berries. I was hardly able to overcome the seduction of his smell before he started unbuttoning his shirt. One by one. What are you doing? I asked, feeling my ears turn red. But he continued without replying. He took his shirt off and turned right, exposing his left side to me. For a few seconds, my eyes shamelessly followed his slightly bulging veins from his arms to his bicep. And that's when I saw it. A diamond-shaped birthmark on the left shoulder. One identical to Leo's. Now do you believe me, Mr. Sparks? He asked me, smirking at my widened eyes. Just Noah. Please. How can it be? Leo, he's my son. I have been with him his whole life. I understand. Please get up. Noah, he said, offering me his hand. I scooped Leo in my arms and took Owen's hand. He gestured for me to sit on the sofa. I complied. He gestured his hand, and one of his men offered him a couple of files, which he gave to me. These are the DNA test report that clearly shows that I am Leo's biological father. And a written apology letter from the fertility clinic. They made a mix-up. I knew Leo was my son the moment I saw him a month ago. But I had to be sure too before I approached you. So I've been confirming this. Double-checking everything. I couldn't afford any mistake in the matter of the to-be heir of the Hudson Empire. My Leo, heir to the Sterling Empire. I opened my mouth to say something, but nothing came out of it. What was I supposed to say? I had all the proof I could possibly need in my hands. There must be some mistake, I said, my voice trembling. I don't know anything about a mix-up. Leo is my son. He is my only family. I have no one else. I can't lose him. Owen's expression softened slightly, but his resolve remained firm. I know this is difficult to hear, Mr. Sparks, but the evidence is clear. Leo is my son, and I want him. No, I said, shaking my head. You can't just take him away. He's my whole world. I love him. And you think I don't? Owen retorted, his voice rising. I've missed 4 years of my son's life because of this mistake. I'm not trying to take him away from you, but I have a right to be in his life. The intensity of his words struck a chord in me. Despite my fear and confusion, I could see the pain in Owen's eyes. The same pain I felt at the thought of losing Leo. Right at that moment, a man in his late 50s came directly to Owen. His elegance made all the other men fade away. Must be his butler. He whispered something in his ear and took his leave. Owen turned to me. Seems like this is unavoidable. I'm sorry for all the trouble you had to go through today. My men will drop you. Wherever it is you want to, and I'll be in touch shortly. And left. A week later, Leo's fever kept rising, and I didn't know what to do anymore. The wall clock chimed as its hand struck at 12. It was so late that I could hardly find any CS online. I couldn't wait any longer. I picked Leo up in my arms, his tiny body burning against my skin as he clung to me with his little hands and covered him with his favorite blanket. I rushed out and started looking for a taxi. It was pitch black outside, with a little glow from a faraway streetlight and occasional passing cars. I tried to stop multiple cars or cabs, but none came by to my help when suddenly an emerald green Porsche halted in front of me. The door opened. Sit. A familiar cold voice barked from inside. But, how? I stammered, shocked at the sudden appearance of Owen. I said sit. Owen commanded again, leaving no room for argument. I complied, getting into the car with Leo in my lap, holding him close to my chest. His fever was nowhere near receding. The drive was quiet, with occasional whimpers from Leo. Soon enough, we reached the hospital. Owen went inside the hospital and I followed him. Surprisingly, his men were already present there. The drive was tense and silent except for Leo's occasional whimpers. I glanced at Owen, who was focused on the road. His jaw clenched. How did he know we needed help? Why was he here? We reached the hospital quickly. Owen went inside first and I followed him, clutching Leo tightly. To my surprise, Owen's men were already present there, guiding us straight to a doctor. The doctor took one look at Leo and immediately ushered us into an examination room. We need to get his fever down, he said, his tone urgent. Please wait outside. I reluctantly handed Leo over, my heart aching as he was carried away. I felt helpless and terrified. Owen stood beside me, his expression unreadable. How did you know we were out there? I asked, my voice shaky with both relief and anger. You really think I would leave my son, the future heir to the Sterling Empire, unsupervised? Owen replied coldly. I have people watching him, watching you. I stared at him, disbelief mingling with my anger. You've been spying on us? Protecting, Owen corrected, his tone harsh. And it's a good thing I have been, considering your inability to take proper care of him. How dare you? I snapped, my anger flaring. I've taken care of Leo for 4 years. He's my son. I know what I'm doing. Do you? Owen's eyes narrowed, because it sure doesn't look like it. A good parent wouldn't have their child out in the middle of the night searching for a cab. Don't you dare question my parenting. I shot back. I love Leo more than anything in this world. I'm doing my best. Your best isn't good enough. Your best isn't good enough. Owen retorted. He's sick because of you. If you had the resources. Resources? You think money can solve everything? I interrupted, my voice rising. Leo needs love and care. Not just fancy cars and bodyguards. He needs stability. Owen, he argued, he needs a safe environment. Something you clearly can't provide. The words stung, and I felt tears prick at my eyes. I may not have your money, but I give Leo everything I have. I've been there for him every single day. And look where that's gotten him. Owen said coldly. In a hospital with a high fever because you couldn't get him here in time. You think you can just waltz in and take over? I shouted, my frustration boiling over. You don't know him like I do. You haven't been there for the sleepless nights, the doctor visits, the scraped knees. You can't just show up with your money and think that makes you a better parent. Owen took a step closer, his eyes blazing. I'm not trying to replace you, Noah, but Leo is my son too. And I will not stand by and watch him suffer because you're too proud to admit you need help. Help? I laughed bitterly. You mean control. You want to take him away from me. And you think this is the way to do it? No, Owen said, his voice still firm. I want what's best for Leo, and right now. That means making sure he gets the medical care he needs. After the checkup, I'll take him home where the best doctors and nurses can look after him. I opened my mouth to retort, but before that he said, and I'm not asking you. You have no legal right to stop me from taking my son to his house. This is the end of the conversation. What could I have said? He was right, and better than me for Leo in so many aspects. It was true. I let Leo fall sick if it hadn't been for Owen. I wonder if I would been able to bring Leo to the hospital till now or not. I could not meet his eyes. I just hung my head low and went out in the night. The next night this might be the craziest thing I have ever done in my life. Who could have thought that I would be breaking into Sterling Villa one day? Well, desperate times call for desperate measures. All I could think about was Leo, and the fact that Owen had taken him away from me. He had no right. I crept through the shadows trying to avoid the security cameras. This must be the height of my stupidity. I had no plan. I just knew I had to get to Leo. I moved silently, my eyes darting around for any sign of movement. Suddenly, a spotlight shone on me, and an alarm blared through the quiet night. I froze, caught like a deer in headlights. Within seconds, two of Owen's men grabbed me, their grips like iron. Let me go, I yelled, struggling against them. I need to see my son. I struggled against them as they hauled me into the grand foyer where Owen stood. Arms crossed and an amused look on his face. Look, I'm not here to steal anything. I shouted. I just want to see Leo. He is my son. You can't just stop me from seeing him like that. To my surprise, Owen just started laughing, rolling his head back like a little child. Breaking into Sterling Villa. Noah? Really? Don't you dare laugh at me. I yelled, still struggling against his men. You had no right to take him. Owen raised a hand, signaling his men to release me. Relax, Noah. I was going to invite you over. Seems like this was pointless now. What? I asked, bewildered. Yeah, he continued, still chuckling. I sent my driver over to your house to invite you here. If I had known you were going to break in, I wouldn't have bothered. I blinked, trying to process his words. You what? He sighed, his expression turning serious. Leo needs you. Noah, he can't sleep without you. He's been asking for you nonstop. My anger melted away, replaced by a rush of relief and excitement. Where is he? I need to see him. Owen nodded to his men, who guided me down a long hallway. I could feel my heart racing, but this time with hope. We reached a large room, and as soon as I stepped inside, I saw Leo lying in a big bed, looking small and fragile. Daddy! Leo's face lit up as soon as he saw me. He reached out with his little arms, and I rushed to his side, scooping him up and holding him close. I'm here, buddy, I whispered, kissing his forehead. Daddy's here. Leo snuggled into my chest, his tiny body relaxing. I missed you, Daddy. I missed you too, Leo, I said, feeling tears in my eyes. I'm here now. I held him until he fell asleep in my lap, his breathing soft and steady. It felt like the whole world had reset itself. I looked up to see Owen standing in the doorway, watching us with a soft expression. I'm sorry, he said quietly, stepping into the room. For everything I said, I was wrong. I nodded, still holding Leo close. Me too. Owen sat down on the edge of the bed, We both want what's best for Leo. He took a little pause, tilting his head as if contemplating his next words, and said, "That's why I want you to move in here. At least until Leo gets better." "What?" I asked, surprised. "Move in here?" "Yes," Owen said firmly. "He needs you, Noah. And I think we need to figure out how to do this together." I looked down at Leo sleeping peacefully in my arms. The thought of being under the same roof as Owen was daunting. But if it meant being with Leo, I would do it. "Okay," I said finally. "For Leo." Owen nodded, relief evident on his face. "For Leo." We sat there in silence for a while, the tension between us easing as we watched over the little boy who had brought us together in the most unexpected way. I still didn't know how we were going to make this work. But at least for now, Leo was safe and happy. And that was all that mattered. 4 days later, even the spatula here shines more than the mirror in my house. I can never get used to this level of richness where people are literally handing you everything. If it wasn't for Leo's refusal to eat anything other than what I cook, there would have been 10 different people here cooking 11 different kind of cuisines. As I flipped pancakes in the massive kitchen, Leo sat on the island, swinging his leg and chatting away about his favorite cartoons. Owen was sitting next to him on a counter stool, looking sharp in his tailored suit. He had an important meeting this morning but insisted on joining us for breakfast. It was a cute, almost domestic scene, and I found myself smiling. "More pancakes, Daddy?" Leo said, his eyes lighting up as I placed another stack on his plate. "Coming right up, buddy," I said, flipping another pancake onto his plate. "And don't forget the honey." Leo giggled, reaching for the honey bottle. "Lots of honey." Owen chuckled, sipping his coffee. "Don't let him drown the pancakes." "Noah." "Right," I said, laughing. "Just a little." But Leo, being Leo, squeezed the bottle a bit too hard, and honey poured all over his pancakes and, unfortunately, all over Owen's suit as well. "Owen," I exclaimed, rushing around the island. "Oh no, your suit." Owen looked down at the sticky mess and smiled. "It's okay, really." I scooped Leo up with one arm and started dabbing at the honey on Owen's suit with a napkin. "I'm so sorry. You have your meeting. And now this." Owen put a hand on my shoulder, trying to calm me down. "Noah, it's fine. I have plenty of other suits." But I kept rubbing at the stain, my heart racing. "I just feel terrible. You're always so put together." And now suddenly, Owen took my hand, stopping me mid-rub. "Noah," he said softly, looking into my eyes. "It's okay. I can just change into another suit." I felt a spark at his touch, and embarrassment flooded through me. I realized how close we were and how ridiculous I must look panicking over his suit, rubbing his chest like a maniac. I'm sorry," I stammered, my face turning red. Owen smiled, his grip on my hand gentle but firm. "Really? It's no big deal." I nodded, pulling my hand back and shifting Leo in my arms. "Right, sorry. I'm sorry." Owen nodded understanding. I looked at him standing there in his honey-stained suit and couldn't help but feel a warmth spreading through me. Despite everything, we were settling into this strange new family dynamic, and it felt nice. Leo reached out, touching Owen's cheek. "Daddy Noah made the best pancakes. Right?" Owen grinned, ruffling Leo's hair. "The best, buddy. The absolute best." I set Leo down, and he went back to his pancakes, more careful with the honey this time. I turned back to Owen. "You should probably get changed. You don't want to be late." Owen nodded, giving me a reassuring smile. "Thanks, Noah, and thanks for breakfast. It was great." As he walked away, I couldn't help but watch him, feeling a mix of admiration and something else I couldn't quite place. I couldn't help but think about that spark I felt that moment when he held my hand. It was confusing and unexpected, but I couldn't deny that it felt right. Leo finished his pancakes, and I got him ready for the day, trying to push those thoughts aside. We had a routine to settle into, and that was what mattered most. But as we went about our morning, I couldn't help but find myself hoping, even wishing, maybe just maybe this crazy situation could turn into something beautiful. Later that night, if there's one thing I'll miss the most once I leave, it would be the baths here. They define relaxation on a different level. As I stepped out of the warm, comforting water, I felt the ache in my body remind me of how long the day had been. And I was ready to collapse into bed. I headed to Leo's room to check on him before turning in. As I approached, I saw the most adorable sight. Owen sitting on the bed with Leo asleep on his lap. His little head resting on Owen's arm. Owen himself had dozed off. Leo's storybook loosely held in his hand. I couldn't help but smile at the scene. They looked so peaceful, so content. Tiptoeing carefully, I made my way over to them gently. I took the book from Owen's hand and set it aside. Then I grabbed a blanket and draped it over both of them, trying my best not to wake them. As I stood there admiring the sight, I realized how much this moment meant to me. It wasn't just about Owen and me, it was about Leo. Our little boy, who had brought us together in the most unexpected way. I took a step back, ready to head to my room, when my foot caught on the edge of the coffee table. Before I knew it, I lost my balance and fell forward, landing right on top of Owen. My face ended up buried in his chest, and I could feel his warmth and the steady rise and fall of his breath. For a second, I was too stunned to move. Owen stirred awake, his arms instinctively wrapping around me to steady both of us. He held me like that for a couple of seconds, his grip firm yet gentle. I could feel the beat of his heart against my cheek, and for a brief moment, it felt like a hug. "Are you okay?" Owen asked, his voice soft and a little groggy from sleep. I quickly pulled back, my face burning with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, Owen, I didn't mean to." He chuckled softly, releasing me. "It's okay, Noah, really, are you sure you're all right?" I nodded, standing up. "Yeah, I'm fine, just a little clumsy, I guess." Owen's eyes softened as he looked at me. "You don't have to leave. You can stay here with us. There's plenty of room on the other side of Leo." My heart skipped a beat at his invitation. "Are you sure?" "Of course," he said, patting the empty space on the bed. "Leo would love it if you were here when he wakes up." Shy and a little flustered, I nodded and walked around to the other side of the bed. I slipped under the covers, lying down next to Leo. Owen adjusted the blanket over us, ensuring we were all covered and comfortable. As I lay there listening to the soft, even breaths of Leo and Owen, I couldn't help but feel a sense of completeness. It was a feeling I hadn't experienced in a long time. If ever, this moment, this tiny family we were forming, felt so right, but there was also a lingering fear in the back of my mind that it could all be over soon. I turned my head slightly to look at Owen, who was watching me with a gentle expression. "Thank you, Owen," I whispered, not wanting to wake Leo. "For what?" he asked, his voice just as soft. "For everything," I replied. "For being here, for helping with Leo, for everything." Owen smiled, a warmth in his eyes that made my heart flutter. "You don't have to thank me, Noah, we're in this together." I nodded, feeling a tear escape my eye. I quickly wiped it away, not wanting to ruin the moment. "Good night, Owen." "Good night, Noah," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. I turned my attention back to Leo, who was snuggled up between us, his tiny hand resting on my arm. I kissed his forehead gently and closed my eyes, letting the warmth of this moment wash over me. As I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, things were starting to fall into place. There was still so much uncertainty, but for now, I was content, I was happy, and that was enough. With the soft breaths of Leo and Owen surrounding me, I allowed myself to hope that this fragile, beautiful thing we were building could last, hope that we could be a family. Not just for now, but for always. 2 days later, I was freaking out. It felt like I was his boyfriend, and he was taking me to meet his family. Even though I was well aware that the only reason his grandfather invited us was to meet Leo. I was nervous all the way as we drove up the long, winding driveway to Owen's grandparents' countryside mansion. It was like something out of a fairy tale, surrounded by lush green fields and vibrant gardens. Leo was bouncing with excitement in the backseat, his little face pressed against the window. "Look, Daddy, so many flowers," Leo exclaimed, his eyes wide with wonder. I forced a smile, trying to calm my own nerves. "Yeah, buddy, it's beautiful, isn't it?" Owen glanced at us from the driver's seat, his lips curving into a warm smile. "My grandparents will be thrilled to meet you both. They've been looking forward to this visit." As we pulled up in front of the grand mansion, an elderly couple stepped out onto the porch. Owen's grandfather, tall and dignified, stood with a welcoming smile. His grandmother, a petite woman with kind eyes and a mischievous grin, waved enthusiastically. "Owen, it's good to see you." his grandmother called out as soon as we got out of the car. She then turned her attention to Leo and me. And you must be Noah and Leo. We've heard so much about you. I felt a bit nervous but smiled as I shook their hands. It's nice to meet you both. Thank you for having us. Leo, never one to be shy, ran up to them with a big smile. Hi, I'm Leo. Can we see the flowers? Owen's grandfather chuckled. Of course, young man, we've got plenty of flowers and even some fish in the pond. Leo's eyes widened with delight. Fish? Can we see them, Daddy? Sure thing, Leo, I said, taking his hand. The day was spent exploring the beautiful estate. Leo had a blast running through the gardens, chasing butterflies, and of course, watching the fish in the pond. Owen's grandparents were incredibly warm and welcoming, making us feel right at home. During lunch, Owen's grandmother couldn't help but tease us. You two make such a lovely couple, she said with a twinkle in her eye. I felt my face heat up, and I quickly glanced at Owen, who looked equally embarrassed. Oh, we're not. I mean, we're just. Oh, hush, she said with a playful wave of her hand. I'm just teasing, but you do make a good team, don't you? Owen cleared his throat. We do what's best for Leo. His grandmother nodded, a knowing smile on her face. Of course, and that's what matters. After lunch, Leo tugged at my hand. Daddy, let's go see the fish again. I laughed and nodded. All right, buddy, let's go. We headed back to the pond, and I sat with Leo as he watched the fish swim lazily in the water. He was so happy and carefree, and seeing him like that made everything worthwhile. After a while, I noticed Owen's grandmother approaching Owen, who was standing a little way off looking at us. She placed a hand on his arm and asked quietly, So, Owen, tell me, do you like Noah? My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly turned my attention back to Leo, pretending not to hear. But I couldn't help but listen. Owen sighed softly. How could you think like that? Grandma? Nothing could ever happen between us. I got up and went a bit farther from there but still close enough to keep an eye on Leo. I couldn't bear to hear Owen finish that sentence. I dreaded this day all this while. I knew Owen was right. I knew there was a huge gap between me and Owen that I could never fill. But hearing him say it so definitively hurt more than I expected. Daddy, look, a big fish. Leo's excited voice brought me back to the moment. I smiled at him, ruffling his hair. That's a big one. All right. As the sun began to set, we made our way back to the mansion. Dinner was a lively affair, filled with laughter and stories. Owen's grandparents were wonderful hosts, making us feel like part of the family. After dinner, we sat outside on the porch, enjoying the cool evening air. Leo, exhausted from the day's adventures, fell asleep in my lap. Owen's grandparents bid us good night, leaving us alone under the starry sky. Owen looked over at me, his expression soft. Today was nice, wasn't it? I nodded, glancing down at Leo's peaceful face. Yeah, it was. Leo had a great time. There was a moment of silence. However, before Owen could speak again, I got up and excused myself, mumbling something about putting Leo to bed. I couldn't bear to talk to him. Not after what I heard. I carried Leo inside, gently placing him in the guest room bed. As I watched him sleep, my mind kept replaying Owen's words. Nothing could ever happen between us. It was a reminder of the reality I had to face, no matter how much I wanted to pretend otherwise. The next morning I tried. I really tried all through the night, tossing and turning around in sleep, fooling myself that I was doing it all just for Ian, but I knew the truth. No matter how much I tried to run from it, I knew the truth in my heart. Sure, it was Ian who brought us together, but it was Owen who made me want us to be like this forever. As soon as he reached back home, I headed straight for my room. My mind was made up and I knew what I had to do. I couldn't keep living in the stream world, hoping for something that Owen had made clear was impossible. It would only lead to more heartbreak. I started packing my bags, my hands shaking slightly as I folded my clothes and placed them neatly into my suitcase. With each item I packed, the room felt emptier and my heart heavier. As I was zipping up the suitcase, I heard footsteps approaching. Owen appeared in the doorway, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. Noah, what are you doing? He asked, his voice tinged with alarm. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I'm leaving. Owen, I can't stay here anymore. He stepped into the room, his eyes searching mine. Why? Is it something I did? Something I said? I shook my head, trying to keep my voice steady. It's not about you, Owen. It's about me. I can't keep pretending that everything is fine when it's not. He frowned, clearly not understanding. What do you mean? I paused, gathering my thoughts. I spent all night thinking about what you said to your grandmother. About how nothing could ever happen between us. And I realized the gap between us. How huge my delusions were. I realized that I can't keep living here, falling for you bit by bit every day, knowing that you don't feel the same way. Owen's eyes widened in shock. Noah, I held up my hand, stopping him. Please let me finish. I know you care about me, but not like I care about you. You see me and you see Leo's other dad. I look at you and see I can't do this. Owen keep getting hurt more than I already am. He took a step closer. His expression pained. Noah, I never meant to hurt you. I care about you more than you know. I swallowed hard. I know, Owen, but it's not enough. Don't worry. I don't blame you. This is my problem and I promise I'll keep my emotions in check, but I need to put some distance between us if I ever hope to do this. Don't. He started to speak, but I showed him my hand, pleading to stop. For a moment we just stood there, the silence heavy between us. Finally Owen nodded, his shoulders slumping into defeat. I'll miss you. And Leo will too. Tears welled up in my eyes as I nodded. I'll miss you both too. With that, I picked up my suitcase and headed for the door. Owen didn't try to stop me, and I was grateful for that. As I walked through the villa for what felt like the last time, I couldn't help feel a deep sense of loss, but I knew this was the right thing to do for both of us. When I reached the front door, I took one last look at the place that had become my home, even if just for a short while. Then with a heavy heart, I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. The cab arrived, and I climbed in, giving my driver my address. As we drove away, I glanced back at the villa one last time. My heart ached, but I knew I had made the right decision for me, him, and Leo. 2 weeks later, how could the loss of something I never had be so immense? It's been 2 weeks since I last saw Owen or heard from him. But I have thought of him every day since. It hasn't been easy these past weeks. When I first arrived back at my apartment, it felt strange to be back. The place seemed smaller, quieter, and lonelier. I unpacked my bags and tried to settle back into my old routine. But it was hard. Every little thing reminded me of Leo and Owen. The first week without them was the hardest. I kept expecting to hear Leo's little footsteps, Owen's laugh, or a voice calling out for me. But the apartment remained silent. I spent most of the weekend trying to distract myself, but it was no use. I missed them terribly. Sure, I got to see Leo. His driver brought him over last weekend, and we even went to the park together. The day passed slowly. I went through the motions, trying to keep myself busy, but everything reminded me of Leo and Owen. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a message or a call, but it remained silent until this morning, when my phone flashed. Hey, from Owen. My heart did a lap dance, but I quickly calmed myself and replied with a, hi. My phone instantly chimed with another text from him. Can we talk? I quickly typed, yeah. Sure. Everything all right? Could you please open your door so we can talk? His reply read. My brain went fireworks, and my heart did a somersault. I rushed to open the door and found a huge bouquet of flowers in my face. Leo's tiny face popped from the side of the flowers, and in his cutest voice he said, Daddy, please come back home. I took the bouquet from his hand and gestured for Owen to come inside. I set the flowers in a water jar and went to take Leo from Owen's arms. I missed you, buddy. How have you been? I said, hugging him and kissing his cheeks. I missed you too. Daddy missed you too, he chirped. I looked at Owen, who was looking at me too, with a look in his eyes that I couldn't quite understand. I put Leo down, who rushed to the fridge for candies. That's when Owen approached me. Noah, he began, his voice soft. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, and I realized that I've been selfish. I've been so focused on keeping things as they are that I didn't consider your feelings. I looked at him, my heart aching. Owen, it's not your fault. I should have been honest with you from the beginning. He shook his head. No, I should have seen it. And I did. In a way, I just didn't want to acknowledge it because I was scared of what it might mean. I frowned, confused. What do you mean? Owen took a deep breath, looking me in the eyes. Noah, I care about you a lot more than I've let on. And it's not just because of Leo. You've become an important part of my life, and I don't want to lose you. My heart skipped a beat, hope flickering to life. Owen, this time, he held up a hand, stopping me. Please let me finish. I know I've said that nothing could ever happen between us, but I was wrong. I was scared of letting you in, of what it might mean for Leo and for us. But I can't deny my feelings anymore. I don't want you to leave. Noah, I want you to stay. Not just for Leo, but for me, for us. Tears welled up in my eyes as I listened to the words. Owen, he reached out, taking my hand in his. Please, Noah, give us a chance. I know it won't be easy. And we'll have to take it one step at a time. But I'm willing to try, if you are. I looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. With I'm sure a very red face. And in a tiny voice. I said, how could I not? A smile spread across his face. And he pulled me into a hug. As we held each other, I felt a sense of peace and hope that I hadn't felt in a long time. As days went by, Owen, Leo, and I got used to our new life together. Leo kept us smiling with his laughter and curiosity. Owen and I grew closer, figuring out our feelings step by step. Our future was unknown, but we were full of hope and love. We dreamed of a happy family, full of laughter and support. Whatever challenges came our way, we knew we had each other. And that was enough to build a happy future together. The end. Would you date your son's other father? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome.